So yeah, welcome to the talk, and thanks for the introduction. And I'm Viktor. I'm co-founder of KodaDot, and you can find me on the GitHub, or Twitter, everywhere, like at Viktor. And what we're gonna talk today is like about AssetHub NFTs, what there are, like why you should care, and we'll talk about something special later. So what's KodaDot? KodaDot is like open source NFT marketplace in the Polkadot ecosystem. We are already multi-chain powered. So using chains such as like Polkadot, Kusama, running EVM, and also like mainly asset hubs. We are technology agnostic, so that means that everybody can bring their own metadata standards, such as like OpenSea or Tezos, like basically anything. We can process it, and we have our own schema to work with. We are bounty-based, so we are bringing a lot of developers from the other ecosystems into the Polkadot, so they can basically pick up the issue, learn more about Polkadot, how it works, how the transactions are under the hood, and they can earn some dot. And we have already 500 stars, more than 300 forks, and 120 plus contributors. So what's the current state of the NFTs in the Polkadot ecosystem? There are like few approaches. Few notable mention is like NFTs palette, Uniques palette, and of course ORML NFT. So such as like AssetHubs, Basilisk, Fala, and many others like Akala use the palettes. So it's basically a runtime logic in the blockchain, and it's much faster than, for example, smart contracts. Of course, like there are smart contracts for legacy reasons, or like it's easier to extend than the palettes. So we have like EVM WebAssembly on the ink. So Moonbeam, Astar, Olive Zero, all of them are using like smart contracts. It's easier to extend, easier to start, because like there are many already EVM NFTs in the other ecosystems. And of course, there are like legacy NFTs, which is called like Ordinals and Kusama. They are there since 2021, and still working. People are trading, and it's a magic that still works. So why you should choose AssetHub then? It's like system chain with DOT, so you don't need your own token. You don't need to bring liquidity from other central exchanges. It works natively with DOT. The main currency is DOT. It works seamlessly. It's a full-featured NFT palette, so anything you would need to bootstrap your marketplace or bootstrap your NFTs is already there. There are a lot of off-chain utilities, which I will talk later about them. And of course, we have atomic swaps ready to be used, so people can swap their NFTs one for another and can have fun. And of course, like main point why AssetHub would be like the to go in the future would be like compatibility with XCM NFTs. And like, what are those features, you may ask? I was doing research on the EVM platforms, like how the smart contracts works, how like what's the current state of NFTs, and what I found out, like there are many ERCs already, like which are trying to say like how NFTs should work, what should be the collection metadata, what should be like attributes, and there are like, you see many numbers here, but they don't matter. It's already like implemented on the AssetHub already. So we have already, as I mentioned, collection and item metadata, which just needs like 2 or 3 ERCs in this list. Then we have custom attributes, which is another 2 ERCs, and also granular permissions, which you need to usually code like on the EVM smart contract. So it works magically out of the box, and like users are happy. And for example, one special thing about AssetHub is specific mint settings. So you can basically set like who is gonna mint into your collection. You can set it to public, you can set it to private, or holder of. So you can set like, okay, holder of this collection of NFT in this collection can mint into this another collection, which is kind of nice, because then you have basically allow list natively on chain, which works, and people then have motivation to obtain another NFTs. So it creates the pressure. And one special feature of AssetHub Palette is that you have off-chain utilities, so you can basically sign the transaction offline, distribute online. And what it means is basically there is a special transaction called mint of off-chain, and you can use like pre-signatures. So you sign the payload, like this NFT is intended for this user with this metadata. You make a transaction, then you distribute it, for example, on the IPFS or other storage like RV, and then the user can take it, submit the transaction with this signature, and tada, they can mint. So it's good, for example, for allow list, or when you want to create, for example, like POAP. So you pre-sign all the transactions for the attendees, and then user can come home and do it by himself or herself at home. And also, you can set this for the attributes. So for example, if you have some sort of game which, for example, you have character which is leveling up, you can set these pre-signatures for the attribute, so the character can level up and level up without, like, of course, with your permission. And signatures, of course, allowed us to make migration from Kusama ordinals to AssetHub, and it works seamlessly. User just select the collection which they want to migrate. They make these pre-signatures, and then they can distribute it to the original holders. Then one specific thing about AssetHub is atomic swaps. So maybe you heard about Seaport of OpenSea. It's like the base engine for them to trade NFTs. And imagine back then you have, for example, Pokemon cards, and you are trading one to another with your friends. So what atomic swap does is basically allowing this trading. So you can swap these Pokemon cards one to another, and so on. You can use Surcharge. So when you have more valuable Pokemon than your friend, you can ask your friend, like, okay, I can swap this card with you, plus you need to pay me $10 back. So it's natively there, it works, and it creates like new market for things. So people can trade instead of like buying, selling, listing. Yeah, people like to trade. It's our nature. This is how we work. Plus, you can have, or you can use NFT to none plus surcharge. So basically, create the offer. So instead of like, yeah, I'm gonna swap this card with you, you can use atomic swap to represent offer. So yeah, I'm gonna pay you $10. So instead of like guessing like, okay, this should be the listing price for this particular NFT, or instead of like using just floor, another users can create offer for you, which is much nicer behavior. It's more human. But like AssetHub is not perfect, right? It's still just like a blockchain. It's still just a palette, and it has its own problems. And what we found out is basically first, like big one is UX barriers. So basically, teleporting assets up and down from relay chain to the parachain seems kind of problem for users. Plus, there is something called existential deposit you may know about, and it doesn't exist anywhere else. It doesn't exist on Ethereum, it doesn't exist on Tezos, Solana, like basically doesn't exist. And we need to like educate users that like, yeah, you need at least 0.1 dots so your account like really exists, then you can get as an artist, you can get royalties. So it takes a while. People understand that, but you need to educate them properly. And there, what is the second like high barrier was the fees. So for when you want to create like collection on AssetHub, currently you need to put a $10 deposit, which is like for many users is ultra high. For some people can afford it, some people don't. And that's why we create RFC 45 with Aurora, and we have planned to decrease the fees on AssetHub, so people, have lower barriers to entry into the ecosystem. And of course, the third barrier is education. So we are onboarding users to the ecosystem, like We are helping them to set up wallets such as like Talisman. They are doing amazing job with the UX. It's very seamless, but like still we need to educate them. Yeah, install wallet. You need to create your own address. Then you need to teleport the dot to the AssetHub and so on. And the fourth step was kind of kind of funny yesterday. People ask me like, oh, there are native NFTs on Polkadot, and I was like, yes, there are. So we should educate more people that yes, we have NFTs on Polkadot, which works, which are nice, which are fast, and you can enjoy like all this ecosystem. So how to integrate AssetHub NFTs or like the native solution? So first, what would you usually do is like fetch the data from RPC nodes, then transfer them on the client, and the result would be, not surprisingly, big and slow frontend in the result. So if you wanna fetch all the NFTs from RPC node, you can make a RPC query, you can make a copy, and still, when you return, it wouldn't be processed. And as a result, you will have a lot of data to store on the client's device, and usually like what Google made, like a research, like the usual price for device on the user is like $200, so you cannot expect much. And plus, of course, when someone wants to buy NFTs on AssetHub, they will need to like swap tokens from relay chain, for example, to the parachain. And how to make the UX seamless on AssetHub or like hide the complexity. So first, like not to be rely on RPC node, we use indexers. Indexers are here to fetch the data that client needs. It works, it loads fast, and we show only the data that are relevant. So there are many like data on the storage that helps the palette to function normally, but you just don't need to show all. Just show what like user really wants. For example, name, description, price, and so on. And of course, you need a lot of explainers. What we got as a feedback from users, like they are super happy that we have explainers on the app. Like, yeah, this is the deposit. Why you need this deposit is that you are saving something on the storage, and that's why you need to pay that. So people can understand it more. Like, oh, okay, so that's how it works. So without these hints or explainers, it's harder to navigate, and people are like ultra frustrated. Like, why did I lost some dot, for example, for deposit? And of course, like we try to doing complex operations in few clicks. So I'm gonna explain it more on the auto teleporting feature. And of course, like how to bring users to the ecosystem is like most valid question. We found out that to create collection for users is like kind of hard, because like when you want to create NFT, you need some package where it's stored. So in this case, you have something called collection. You need to create your collection. You need to pay deposit. You need to create the metadata for it, so name, description, and so on. Everything requires, of course, fees, deposits. And that's why we make a small hack. Using the AI, we use the generative AI waifu to bring people to the ecosystem. So people basically have the form, they'll select the waifu they want to see, and that's why like with the simple clicks they generate their own waifus. For example, like on the image on the right, then they can select waifu, and they are super happy to make their first NFT on the Polkadot. And of course they made it their own, and of course they can then sell it, trade it, and so on, also using atomic swaps, and works. People are happy. And how to leverage XCM would be like the most valid question here. Usually we would say like, okay, visit some just cross-chain page where you can teleport the assets from one chain to another, or like use Polkadot.js or use something else, but it's a friction in the UX, and we saw that. So that's why we decided to use something called the auto teleport feature at the checkout step, for example. So when people wants to buy NFTs on AssetHub and they don't have DOT already on AssetHub, they just using the auto teleport feature, we teleport dot from their relay chain to the parachain. On their behalf, they just need to sign, they need to wait. And it's much easier than like going to cross-chain page, then teleport some funds, then go back to the NFT and then buy it. So instead of like doing 6 steps, you just click sign 2 times and done. And also, you don't need to check just the relay chain. You can check other parachains like HydraDX, for example. Someone is doing like liquidity provisioning, so you can check HydraDX if they have enough DOT to pay for the NFT. And that's nice thing about XCM is like universal. You can use it for relay chain. You can use it for parachain. It works like awesome. So main question here is like how to supercharge AssetHub NFTs. And we need the data first. And as you may know, like there are 2 types of data in each block in Substrate. First is events and the extrinsics. And extrinsics is basically like the call or the transaction that the user makes to the chain. For example, like NFT.mint. And there are events, so there are like interactions which are emitted by the chain. So okay, you changed storage, you minted the NFT, so NFT.minted was the event that was created. And basically rule of thumb, or what we learned, is like it's more effective to process the events. And on the right, you can see the current architecture of KodaDot. So basically, you have clients which are using the KodaDot indexers, such as like CLI, sub0, KodaDot, Phantom Shop, and many other wallets. Then you have GraphQL API, which connects to the AssetHub indexer. And the AssetHub indexer, of course, takes data from subsquid archive and RPC nodes. And between that, there is something called a unique query, which I'm going to talk right now. So why you would need indexers? You don't sacrifice UX. So reading data from blockchain, as I mentioned previously, it's time-consuming, it's hard, it takes a lot of time and effort. You can make analytics. So for example, you want to see like what was the floor of particular collection. You can see it easy. It's just one query instead of like doing heavy data manipulation on the front end. And you can also get like simple GraphQL interface. So instead of like processing RPC queries one by one, you have GraphQL, ask for what you need, and you get it. So how does the schema for KodaDot look like? We have mainly 2 entities. First is like a collection entity, which holds like the list of NFTs. And there are many data you can query, so such as name, metadata, this image, events which happened, when was it created, who created that, and so on. Plus you have like NFT entity, which basically represents the NFT itself. So it has also like name, image, who is the owner, who is the creator, because as you learned, not like there is not only creator in some collections, so all data you need. And things go easier with an API. And basically what we wrote is like a TypeScript query builder on top of the subsquid. There is no middleware server you can use. And it's easy to extend, easy to use. And basically there are 40 plus calls out of the box. So it works seamlessly, it works fast, and like you just do npm install and you can supercharge your web app with NFTs like in a few seconds. And like why is unique query cool? Is basically we are transforming this big query. It's for many developers it's still hard to use GraphQL, so that's why it was one of the motivational steps to create like the unique query. So instead of like crafting these GraphQL queries by hand, you use the unique query. You just use import, get the client ID, and then basically said like client get item list by collection ID, and tada, you have the query. So in 3 lines of code, which are easy to understand, easy to read, it's much simpler than writing query on your own. And what does the API do? Is basically any GraphQL is simple, let's say. So graphical request is basically a post to the server with like a query URL, and the body of this request is basically query body with variables. And schema validation is always done on the side of the backend or server. So subscript processes it for you. So if you have incorrect query, it tells you like, oh, this is error, like you cannot use these fields. And so we are basically composing these correct queries for you, so you don't need to guess like, okay, what's legal and what's not. And works out of the box with Node, Web, Dino, Ban, so all the popular basically JavaScript runtimes. And of course, like there is a CommonJS and ESM plus types out of the box. So if you are still using like legacy CommonJS for particular reasons, you can still use it. So what we are building today, that's why I came here, is basically the frame. And you may not heard about frame before, but this is like the interactive iframe on top of like a social network. And we're gonna do like a claiming of KodaDot POAP directly on the social network. So you may probably seen this POAP already on KodaDot. It's like the image of the collection, description of the name of the collection and description, and you have this button to start claiming. And maybe you are confused now, what's that and why you need it? It's like there is a new social network called Farcaster, and like it's new, it's cool, and people are building on top of that. It's better than X. And why is it cool? Is like it's a social protocol, so you can bring your own front end. You don't need to use one specific. You can have specialized front ends, for example, one for NFTs, one for like hubs, or you can have like general purpose, whatever you like. There is something called hubs, so you organize community around some particular topics. So you can see like there is a hub called Polkadot, and Lou basically posted like a collection on KodaDot into the hub, so people can react to that, then can learn more about KodaDot via the Polkadot. So you just want to explore the Polkadot ecosystem, and then you can find, okay, so there is a KodaDot or AssetHub NFTs. And of course, it's Web3 native, so that's important because like you can do token payments. You can say like pay someone 10,000 degen, or you can do native NFT minting out of the box, or you can say just GM and the UI responds to that. And what's the frame then? It's a like adding layer of interactions with user. So I said before, it's an interactive iframe using basically open graph tags. So it's not a magic. It's basically like you are returning open graph to the web, and basically like Farcaster UI responds to that. It's a nice presentation layer, so you can show users, for example, NFTs from the AssetHub without leaving the app, so people can just click, and it works. Plus, also, it's a write layer, so you have a connected EVM address, and you can perform transactions. For example, via the XCM, you can use Moonbeam to mint NFTs directly on AssetHub. It would work. It's magic. So let's check out the code. And not yes. So this is the something called Frog. Yes. So this is something called Frog. Frog is a framework for building these Farcaster frames. And as you can see, it's basically a simple UI. I made the grid, split in the half. One is image, and then there is the rest of the data. We can click on like start claiming button. It shows you the rules, like who is eligible for this NFT. So there is like, and you just need to enter your Polkadot address. You can only use this address once to claim the POAP, and of course it's geolocated to Bangkok. So when you, for example, want to enter your Polkadot address, which is invalid, and want to click mint, of course it will tell you that this is invalid, but you can You can supply like the correct address. Let's use this one. And tada, I minted directly from the frame. So how it works on the on the like code side, there is like, as I said, there is a framework called Frog, which is like super nice. It's built on top of like this frame API, and of course like Hono. Hono is a web framework, so something like Express back then. So Hono is new, cool. It's better, faster, and you can deploy it anywhere. So if you decide to deploy it on Vercel or Cloudflare, it magically works. And I'm going to use like uniQuery for all this magic. So first, like the base root is the frame /. And first, like I have this magic code called get collection. So what the get collection is asking is like which chain and which token ID. So I have this simple function in uniQuery, and as you can see, it's basically a few lines of code how to get all the data you need. And first, we spawn the get client function. So it's using one parameter, like which chain should it query. So in this case, it's AHP or AssetHub Polkadot. If we want to use AssetHub Kusama, we use just AHK. And then we are the next line, we are extending the fields, because by default, uniQuery does not overfetch the data, but sometimes you need more. For example, like image, like what's the current max of NFTs that are in the collection or so. Sometimes you don't need that, so that's why we try to not overfetch the data, but if you don't need it, you can extend like with one line of code. Then we basically construct query, and how it works is basically you use the client dot collection by ID. So by that ID which we supplied is 111 on AssetHub Polkadot. We supply the ID, and also we want to extend the fields. And then basically we await client.fetch with the query. And the nice thing about uniQuery is that there is like data uniformity. So if you are asking for collection by ID, the result would be like result the data. Data is the predefined attribute in the GraphQL. Dot collection. So it makes logical sense. If it would be like item by ID, the last line would be like result.data.item. If it would be event, it would be result.data.event. So it's easy to use, it's simple, and it's like logical. So that's why we build like uniQuery with like these three things in mind. And as a result, I have the collection on this pop app. So first, I want to get the image. There is like a package we use. It's called a mini IPFS. So basically, the collection image is a IPFS link, and we want to like get like URL for that, because like front end usually cannot read the direct IPFS URL. So we have this function called purify, and we want to purify the collection image. And as a gateway, we, for example, use Apilon currently as a proof of concept. So instead of like using gateway like a native on IPFS, we use the Apilon gateway. We can swap it like right away. Then we are getting the collection name and collection description. And what we are returning is like something called c.result. And result is the title. It's based on the open graph text. And what's like most important here is basically we have this image. So it's what should be returned on the client. And we have some like a component called slide. And as you see, it's basically based on Vercel Satori. And we are returning the whole div tag. Not good at CSS, but I was trying. So as you can see, there is like bunch of CSS and magic code. So in general, what you need to learn is basically everything is div most of the time with the display flex, and then you basically style it how you want. So as a root component of the slide, I can show you. So as we have the one div, which is split by half. So it's two divs. Then in the first div on the left, we have the image. And then we have another div which has two elements. So one is the title, and second is the description. And basically that's how it works. So we have first div with the image, and as you see, is a normal JSX, so something you learned from React or any other framework which use JSX. So if you are pretty familiar with React, like Hono JSX, it's easy to use and simple. Then basically, as I said, we have another div which holds like this h2, which is the title, and then children, so it's basically the description. And you can play with it forever, basically. Like there are many things you can play with. So that's what we're gonna return. And you may ask, like, what's the magic from how to get like from component the image? It basically, as I mentioned, it uses the Hono Satori, so it transfers the JSX to the SVG, and basically then you can show the SVG tag directly on the Open Graph image. And there is like the third field, which is called intent, and basically that's the buttons you want to see on the client. So if we go back, this is the start claiming button. So basically that's our only intent to use. And we have intent button. We say like, okay, so the next action should be view, and we return button. So tada, we have our first screen. If we go next, like we have the view function, and it's also the same magic. We get the collection, we get the image. We have also like the slide list. So basically, we have the image, title, and I hardcoded it in front end just for the sake of purposes, but you can still bring your own API. So if you have, for example, the POP server which gives you the rules, you can use it. It works. And then we have like a few more intents. First is the text input, so you need to like place your Polkadot address. Then we have the second intent, which is called mint. So basically, we will be called action submit, and you can also pass the value, like what should be the value to use. And then we have like third button called just link, so you can visit the external site, for example, like KodaDot. And fourth button, which doesn't currently work, is a minting button, and it needs like a fix from a Farcaster side to support Polkadot, but working on that. And that's like this tab, like this view. So you still see the image, you see the rules, it works. Just in few lines of code, we can make the whole UI, and it's like fun. And the third frame you see is a submit. So basically, you have all this context. You have the button value, you have the input text from the input button, and you can use any Polkadot library you want to use. So for example, isValidAddress is the function from Polkadot util crypto, and you can check if the address is valid. So you basically don't have a limit like what you can use, what you can, basically bring your own libraries, and that's nice. That's why I use like UniQuery and all the other code tech. And first, like you need to check like if user provided address, if the address is valid, or if you know like which collection you should have for POAP. So if you don't have, you basically have this conditional statement. So I'm returning like C result on the supplied address is invalid, as you can see. So supplied address is invalid, and still is like the same div, same styling. So it takes a while to style it properly. That's why we are creating like our own library for these frames, which is called the Uniframe. I hacked it during eDenver. It works. And you can bring your own components, of course. So this is like a bunch of styling, and of course like intents of invalid address is basically like reset. You cannot do much, or like visit link. So it's easy to understand, easy to digest, and like you get it pretty quickly. And if this is the case, so actually user supplied the correct address. We basically have a button value, so we get like what's the chain, what's the collection to mint. So that's what we got from the button above, from the frame/view. See, so that was the action submit, and value was like AHP, the collection ID, and the secret code of Bangkok. And we are then using the chain collection to get the data, and we basically then calling the doClaim function. Basically, what we need to do now is basically call our own server, which mints the NFT on user's behalf with the address we supplied. But we are looking forward to have support for native Farcaster mint button, so people can, for example, directly mint on Moonbeam via XCM on AssetHub. It's not far away, it would work. But currently, like, we need some proxy or middleware server to mint on user's behalf. So basically, what the doClaim function does is calling the server. Server does a respond, and basically server is doing all the heavy job. And then we basically, as a result, we are creating the URL. So basically, from the chain collection and the serial number we minted, tada, we basically construct the whole URL. And it's easy, it works. And the last thing what we need to do is basically return the whole result. So when the thing was successful, also we returning the result. So it's the frame response. And frame response needs image, so we gonna make a whole div. As I said, if you have more than one child, you need to display it with flex, otherwise it won't work. Then we basically align items to center, so it's nicely centered, and we set font size to 60, so it's big enough for on small screens. And then we return one div with the congrats, and there are basically two intents. What we want to see is basically try again. So if you have more friends which would like to mint, or you can use a direct link to the KodaDot web. So how it looks is like I can still mint. And the fine thing is that once you mint your NFT, you'll still get the same URL. So there is still no magic or double claim. So I use the same address, and then I click here, continue, and the link doesn't work. Nice. So that's it. And so that's like in 3 routes. We basically made the interactive UI for users, so they can directly mint NFT from Farcaster on Polkadot without like previous knowledge of like how Polkadot works, what are the addresses, like what's the deposit or something. Like no heavy magic. Basically everything works out of the box for them. And then you can build like more features. So you can use like, you need to, for example, recast this POAP to be eligible, or you can play with that more. So it's nice. And maybe, or maybe not. Okay, perfect. So what's the future for AssetHub NFTs is maybe the question. So we would love to expand of customization of NFTs, so people can create their own banner for collection, or if they made typo during minting, they can still edit that. It's allowed on AssetHub NFTs. It works, and people can play with that. So they don't need to like recreate the smart contract or do some magic on centralized server. Everything is already there in the AssetHub palette, so we need to leverage that properly. Of course, we would love to bring atomic swaps and offers, so you can trade your favorite gen art for different colors, for example. because like how Genard works is basically the hash which is constructed from user address. So for example, you like some art more, some art less. So you can swap it, you can buy a new one, you can make offer. And of course, like you would like to focus on distribution of the AssetHub NFTs. Like Polkadot NFTs are super nice. There are a ton of huge talented artists, and we like to spread word about AssetHub NFTs. And what we see, like Farcaster is one of the nice distribution tools, so people can learn, people can ape into the NFTs on AssetHub without prior knowledge of any XCM, teleportation, bridges, and so on. And of course, like bring your own idea. So if you want to see something on KodaDot or AssetHub NFTs, of course, like open issue or PR, we have bounties. So yeah, shape the future with us. And yeah, don't forget to visit KodaDot.xyz and click follow on Warpcast or Farcaster, like we have a hub/Koda. So thank you.
Thank you, Viktor. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. That was great.
Thank you.
I have a question on the Farcaster. I'm not very familiar with it, but is it expected that the user uses a Polkadot wallet? How does that work?
So it's built on top of Optimism L2 and Ethereum by default. So you have like your own EVM address there currently. So that's why we use the hacking of input field to put the Polkadot address. But what I see, like the killer app or something like that, is, for example, use the Moonbeam as the transaction layer. So you can, for example, via the XCM NFTs, you can like mint the NFTs on AssetHub without like any implementation from the side of Farcaster to implement Polkadot address and so on and so on. You can like leverage these nice things what we have in Substrate. Like Substrate is ultra powerful, so let's leverage that.
Yeah, I would love to see that because I think like Polkadot has so much to offer on an NFT front, and
Yes.
people have all the Ethereum wallets.
Yes, and
How do they interact with the Polkadot NFTs, right?
yes, and also, for example, like where we see like competitive advantage is, for example, build a frame, so artists can share their collection on from KodaDot directly on the Farcaster, so people can see like check my collection without they don't need to visit KodaDot directly. They can just click, and they can. It's a dopamine loop directly on your fingertips, and it's very nice. I built a proof of concept during the eDenver, as I said, and people are like, "Wow, that's nice! Like it works."
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Any more questions?